What's going on, everyone? It's 7:30 on a Saturday. I've been studying all day. Got big exams coming up next week, but I thought I would take a break just to talk about something once again for the second time this week about something that's really important and going on in our government right now that is a serious issue. And this time it's not really a legislative concern. It's more of a culture concern with the way that we do things in this country. So I don't know if you guys have noticed or seen in the news today, but today it broke that the CDC, when they are preparing their budget for this coming fiscal year, they are not allowed to use the words vulnerable, entitlement, diversity, transgender, fetus, evidence-based, and science-based. Now, I don't want this channel to be political, so we're going to stay away from vulnerable, entitlement, diversity, transgender, and fetus, because those are a lot of really politically charged topics. And we're going to focus a lot on evidence-based and science-based, because I think these are things that everyone can agree upon, that the Center for Disease Control, which is one of the biggest funders of scientific research in the world, should be allowed to talk about evidence-based and science-based thinking and include those things in their budget. I think that that's a fair assumption. I think that that's something that not only, should they be allowed to do, but it's something that should come into play with every single study that they fund. I think that, it's crucially important to our society to be utilizing all of the resources that, this country has in terms of their budget and research, and giving that back in terms of research that benefits mankind as a whole. A lot of these grants, so I actually had the opportunity while I was in my undergrad to do some research about these grants and looking at, why is it that there's certain schools that receive a ton of grants. Spoiler alert, it's because, people tend to trust researchers who've had good, products in the past, which, is probably justified, but then our project was about, how do you balance that with people who are up-and-coming researchers who could be, just as qualified to make groundbreaking discoveries, but might not have the funding to do so. And, obviously that's a whole can of worms that, our team as a bunch of undergrads was not really qualified to kind of delve into. I mean, that's a huge political issue that involves a lot of budgeting and things that, were way above our understanding as a couple of, undergrads just kind of interested in the allocation of funds. But what we learned was that there are millions and millions of dollars that are allocated every year through these funds called R01s, which are these huge research grants that go to, some of the most reputable universities in the world, some of the most reputable research labs in the world, whether that's the Scripps National Lab or, institutions like Harvard. And we were looking at the rankings, and Harvard had, I think, 3 schools in the top 50 funded institutions. They had their School of Medicine, their School of Public Health, and their undergrad institution were all separately on that list as, 3 separate institutions that were receiving, the top 50 funds in the country. And why does this all matter? Well, just to give you some context, of why this is so important, these are the elite researchers of our country that are being told, hey, when it comes to making this budget, we really don't want you to talk about science or evidence-based learning or anything that is crucially important to the foundation of science, discovery, progress, and innovation. All of these things have just been blown to the wayside by our current administration. Now, regardless of whether you believe in Trump, you believe in his fiscal policies, you might have disagreed with my last video, you might disagree, no, this is a necessary step, this is a necessary evil when it comes to student loan reform. I think that this is a good solution, and that's your, that's your right. But when it comes to this, I don't think there's any debate that our scientists should be allowed to perform good science. That's crucially important to the research and development sector of our country. It's crucially important to humanity as a whole when it comes to all of these earth-shattering discoveries that are coming up the line. CRISPR is going to change the way that we treat disease forever. Genome sequencing is going to change the way that we are aware of diseases that are coming down the pipeline, being able to diagnose things and be on the lookout for things in particular. All of these things are super important, but apparently our administration just thinks that he can, well, our administration, whether it's one person or a group of people, think that right now they're better off without evidence-based learning. Now, this can range anywhere from, medical research and the mechanisms of drugs, all the way down to, I'm trying to think of a good example, biochemistry, or I don't even know. I already said pharmacology, but biochemistry is a big funded thing. Clinical trials could be thrown in there. I mean, these are all things that are really, really flippin' important to our future as a country and as a scientific power in the world. There's a reason why we continue to get our asses kicked on every single ranking when it comes to math and science, and it's because we as a country have stopped prioritizing that. People say now that even if we have the funds for NASA, we wouldn't even know how to get to the moon because people were kind of paranoid at the end of the Cold War and they destroyed all the ways to, all the evidence and all the plans on how to do it. And right now we don't have people who are smart enough to figure it out again. And it's just crazy to me to think that we have taken a step backwards. This country has always been about innovation, whether it's the minds of, classical inventors like Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison, all the way up to innovators like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and the Macintosh company. I mean, we have always been a world leader in technology and consumerizing technology to make it available to the common man. And right now, I don't see that happening anymore. What I see is a very bleak future that honestly looks like the movie Idiocracy. Like, I can't help but look at this and think of a world where all of our crops are completely screwed up and shriveled up and dead because some company that paid a lot of money said, no, we don't want you to use water to water crops. We want you to use our sports drink. And I can't get that image out of my mind because more and more every day it feels like the interests of big corporations are, prioritized to those of what the people want. And we're in a position where we can't really do anything about it. I mean, you can look at Bernie Sanders as an example. The man claims that, he's fighting as a common man, but dude's got 3 houses and a bunch of cars, and, he is incredibly wealthy. And whether or not he's fighting for what he claims are the common people, he has a great deal of personal wealth. And that's what it takes in this country to even have the opportunity to go out there and make a difference. And that's really screwed up. It's really screwed up that 83% of people didn't agree with Ajit Patel, and all of a sudden, net neutrality is in jeopardy. 83%. All right? If 83% of people in this country believe that something should happen a certain way in a democracy, that is above a supermajority. That's an unbelievably high number. We can't agree as a country on anything. All right? We are so divided by party lines, but if 83% of people agree on something, that means that there are a ton of people from both sides who are all in agreement about something, and that never happens. All right? So you screwed up when you're doing something that ticks off a huge percentage of the country like that. Yet here we are, whether it's because he was in the pocket of a big company or because he just doesn't care about the American people as a whole, this dude has way too much power, and I'm not saying, we need redistribution of wealth. No, we just need accountability in office, It's not about one side versus the other. It's about politicians getting back in touch with being a person. It's about getting back in touch with catering to their constituency rather than the people who elected them into office with their money. All right? Lobbying is important because people need to be aware of issues. The money associated with lobbying is toxic and has completely ruined this country. And we're seeing that right now with, interest groups that don't want, these things to be funded, whether it's research into climate change or research into, I don't even know. I mean, who could possibly oppose research and development that is good for everybody on Earth? And here we are. I mean, we're looking at an administration that is against evidence-based research, that is against science-based thought. All right? This is a budget proposal, right? It's a line item proposal, and nowhere in it can it say the words science from the Center of Disease Control. All right? If everything goes to crap and there's a zombie apocalypse, you know where everyone's heading for the answers? The Center for Disease Control. All right? These are the people that are supposed to be the scientific minds that rule the world. Yet we're looking at them being handcuffed by an administration that can't tell the difference between real and fake news. I mean, personally, you know what? Like, I can't hide my disdain for our current administration, and if that makes this political, then I'm sorry. But I think that my reasoning for being resentful of this administration is pretty non-politically based. I think that they've done a lot of things that are very, very horrible. I think that anyone who's tied to any kind of sexual misconduct should not be in office. All right? I don't think that it's okay for, you know, a witch hunt or anything to happen, but people should be held accountable for their actions. You know, I voted for someone other than Hillary and Trump because I didn't like either of their moral character. And right now we're living in a country where moral character doesn't mean anything, you know? And I'm glad, you know, regardless of what your political views are, I think that it's safe to say a lot of people are pretty happy with what happened in Alabama. I know that there's a lot of people who are very upset by that too, but you know, if this was an if any candidate has a perfectly clean record of good behavior and decency towards the opposite sex and people as a whole, you know, nothing bad can happen. So why are we letting immoral people raise themselves to the heights of being these candidates? So many people were unhappy with the way that the election even like presented itself. Everyone was saying, oh man, I'm just rooting for this person so that this person doesn't get into office. Why did we let it get to that point? Why do we let people whose morals were in question make it that far? You know, and this is time, it's time for this country to have a moral gut check. I mean, you know, this is just one example of how things can go terribly, terribly wrong with poor leadership. And if we continue down this path and we don't change course, now I'm not saying what that course is, I don't know, I'm not a politician. But I can tell you right now that the course that we're going on leads to the movie Idiocracy, all right? I don't know about you guys, but I don't need, you know, the next person that becomes president to be a WWE superstar. I don't need all of the problems in this country to be solved by, like, you know, a demolition derby. I mean, that's honestly, it's a hugely far-fetched idea, but the parallels to what's going on right now in America and the movie Idiocracy are staggeringly horrifying. And right now, we really need to check ourselves and figure out what the hell's going on and get ourselves back on track. So the biggest thing that you can do is get out there and vote. You know, I'm not saying to vote for one person or another, but I am saying to get informed. Know which representative stands for what you stand for and vote for them. All right? And if you don't know what you want in a candidate, then vote for somebody with good moral character. Vote for somebody with a level head. Vote for somebody who's willing to work with people that don't agree with them. Because we didn't have that option in this past election. The top two candidates, the main parties, did not afford us that option. And now we're paying dearly for it. And I maintain my position that, you know, things would have been pretty bad the other way too. Because then we'd have a split government right now, and we would have another 4 years of absolutely no progress being made. But right now, you know, this is my, you know, call to action to you guys, because the vast majority of people who are going to be watching this on YouTube, unless my grandparents have figured out how to use the internet, they're going to be my age. They're going to be people who are going to be of voting age soon. Teenagers, young adults, you know, young professionals. That's the constituency that's on the internet. That's the people who are going to see this. And we are the people that need to make these changes, because right now, the people who are in charge of the, you know, federal government, they're all 40 some odd years older than most of us. They don't have that much longer on Earth. But we have to live with this Earth for probably another like 80 years or so. So we need to start advocating for ourselves. We need to start sticking up for our future. Whether you interpret that as being, oh, I need to do something about climate change. Good. Do something about it, And if you don't think that you can get your reps to do something about it, then make personal changes in your life and encourage other people to do the same. So if it's climate change, if it's the political climate of your hometown, eliminating corruption and making progress and helping people, then do that. Support organizations that help people in need, do that. Whether it's fiscally or with volunteering your time. But you can't just sit by and do nothing and complain about the way that the administration is working. Excuse me, because if you do that, then nothing happens. All right? The president is the president. Congress is Congress. The House of Reps is the House of Reps. If you don't like the way they're doing something, stay within the law, but change it. Do what you can do to make a difference as an individual. Because one drop might not fill an ocean, but many drops can make a wave. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I just needed a little bit of a study break, and I needed to vent a little bit because, God knows how this is going to affect research in this country and progress in the scientific community. So just wanted to draw your attention to something else that was going on. I know it was going around on Facebook, but, just this means so much more than just an ultimatum to the CDC. This is indicative of the culture of politics in our country right now. And if you don't see a problem with that, then you really have the wool pulled over your eyes right now. Because science is something that we can all agree on. Every single discovery that has been made from the dawn of man until this point has some kind of scientific reasoning for it, whether it's just the empirical method and taking a look and observing something and drawing conclusions from it, or actually mixing chemicals together and poof, out comes penicillin. Whatever it is, science had some kind of implication on it. Whether it's the clothes on our back, the ability to shave our face, all of these things have science written all over them. And if we want to continue to make progress as a species, as a country, whatever you want to call it, then we have to have science. We have to have evidence-based learning. And that's just the way it is. So that's all I got for you guys tonight. I got to get back to studying. Got 4 exams next week, so wish me luck. But other than that, take care of yourselves, guys, and look out for the people you care about too. Because people are struggling all over this country. Don't just turn a blind eye to them. Give them a hand. So until next time, this is Alex signing off.